Hello, once again to this another exciting webinar, and this time I have very exciting person. His name is Jason, and he is coming from Microsoft. He's living in United States in Washington DC, and he has huge experience, and we'll talk about his experience in more detail. He's coming from US Army, a very senior position, Lieutenant Colonel, and he served many I should not say wars, but yeah, he has served in Iraq and Afghanistan and other places. So he will talk more about what he has done in the PgMP space and what other things he has done in his life. We'll talk more about that. He has more than 16 years of experience, enterprise leadership experience. He has done many projects up to $150 million work, which is a great thing. And he has managed teams up to 25 people and huge experience. And the best thing is he has passed his PgMP on 17th August 2020, not far away, not long ago. And his story is very unique, and I will ask him to share. He attended my personal mentoring program, and whenever he was coming to the class, he has already studied really hard, and he built his posters, he built his wall, and whatever you see in the back is nothing at the moment, but previously his walls were full of flow chart and many other things. So he really committed himself, and when he called me other day on 17th that he passed the exam, I was not surprised when he said he got above target in 4 areas, and I was not surprised, and he got overall target. So I will let him to explain all about his GMP journey. I will let him to talk about. And from my side, my name is Dharam Singh, and I have been into the space of project program management for more than 25 years now. I think it's a good amount of time to feel proud of. I started teaching PGMPs since 2009. This is when I was preparing for myself. Actually, I learned while teaching. I was teaching and learning together. At the time, I was part of PMI Sydney chapter, and we invited Dr. Ginger Levine. Most of you already know about her. And she actually encouraged me to start teaching, start writing. And she pushed me to write books as well. Before she could have pushed me enough, we lost her. But yes, I still have her mentoring, guidance, and her motivations. So I'm very proud to say, as of now, I have 293 PGMPs from 43 countries. And this is roughly around 10%, which is, I think it's a good number. I love my numbers. I push my student very hard so that they're not only going to pass the exam, but also give me one more number. So rest assured, if you are committed, you are interested to go all the way, I will be motivating and exciting you to get your PgMP done as soon as possible. All right, so I let Jason talk about himself, and I will ask him to explain a little bit about his journey. Jason, over to you.
Yeah, Dharam, thank you. As we discussed earlier, I spent 16 years doing program project management. The first 7 years of my professional career I spent in the United States Army. After that, I went to Washington, D.C., spent about 4 years working for a technology company there called Information Systems Worldwide. And then after that company was sold, I found an opportunity to join Microsoft, and I've been with Microsoft for about 5 years. At Microsoft, I've led 2 key projects there. One project was, or both were for the US government, but for the first one, we really scaled an approach. When I took over an existing project, we were at about 12 people on the team. And I think when we closed out my tenure there, we were at approximately 115 teammates delivering on that program. So we had a lot of growth and a lot of opportunity come to that. Then I transitioned on to another program that was fairly complex. We had multiple subcontractors, a whole bunch of equipment. A lot of the contract was on materials. and then a number of Microsoft employees delivering on that cloud opportunity as well. That's what really interested me in the PgMP, is those two projects or programs at Microsoft, where I started to see that level of governance scale from a project to a program. So I wanted to dive in and learn as much as I could about that. One of my colleagues linked me up with you on LinkedIn, and you and I had a quick conversation about the opportunities that existed if I wanted to do a one-on-one mentorship program, a group mentorship program, and some other opportunities I believe existed as well. I wanted to be able to have that one-on-one conversation with you. As you commented earlier, I would have process maps all over my room. I'm a big user of the whiteboard. So every time Durham and I would meet up, I would already have my whiteboard drawn out with all the processes, all the outcomes, all the deliverables for the category, or for the domain, I should say. So as Durham mentioned, I spent about 2 months in the one-on-one program. We would cover approximately one chapter of the standards for program management per week. And I would conduct my studies before we would get to that meeting. We would conduct our one-on-one conversation. One thing that I liked best about those one-on-one meetings is, one, we would cover my whiteboard and go through all the processes, all the deliverables, and any important things that I didn't capture. But at the end of each of his chapters, he has, I think it's about 10 questions aligned with that chapter. I could have gone to those questions in my study before working with him on that final day of the week. But as he suggested, and I very much preferred, he and I would go through a one-on-one conversation, and via video, he would see how I analyze and take down that question. And that was very helpful, because one of the things that he would coach me on is eliminating all those questions, all those answers, I should say, that were completely off base for a potential response, right? PMI lists a bunch of answers, and you're to select the best one. So there might be a couple that could be correct, but there's normally at least two that are completely off base. So during our studies and our mentorship program, we would eliminate as many as I could, and then it would leave me with either only one good answer or maybe two, and it drastically increases my opportunity to get the answer correct, whether it's a question he's asking or a question on the exam. So that process of elimination that Durham coached me through, I think, was a very successful approach for the exam itself. But yeah, we spent approximately 2 months doing the studies together, and then in August, mid-August, I went and sat for the exam, and it did very well in 4 categories and well enough in the other one to pass the exam.
Yeah, and Jason, would you like to talk about your speed and the questions? You said your 90 questions you did in 1 hour and 10 or 15 minutes. That we're talking PgMP exam.
Yep.
Is that, yeah?
So I can't remember where I read it, or maybe if you mentioned it to me, but only a small number of questions on the exam are aligned with 30 or 40 lines of text. There are a select grouping that are 5 to 10 lines, and some that are one-liner answers. So I took 2 pre-tests, and what I realized during those pre-tests is I would have at least 30 minutes at the end of the exam to go back over anything that I felt I did not understand enough, or that another question may have triggered the answer to a previous question. Nonetheless, I knew I'd have about 30 minutes remaining. So when I sat down for the test, I did not rush through to get to any end state early enough so that I could go back and review. I knew that I would have about 30 minutes to do my review if I needed it. So I did not stress over the time whatsoever. But I did, properly annotate and mark questions to go back to them if I was iffy on the answer and didn't know it.
Yeah. So tell me, tell audience, people, like, what was yours, how, when you said 90 questions, how long it took for you to do 90 questions, the first 90 questions?
Yeah. I want to say I was averaging somewhere around a minute a question. I can't recall, but I want to say it was around a minute a question. And that's how I would gauge my breaks as well. If I recall during the test itself, I actually took one additional break than I planned, just because at the speed that I was going, I knew that I could step outside, take a 5 or 10 minute break, and if I got in line to get back in and there was maybe one person in front of me, I could still have plenty of time to answer those last 20 or 30 questions. So yeah, I think I was running approximately a minute a question is about right.
So 170 question, around 170. So roughly in 3 hour time, you finish whole exam.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, because I know my first break was about 15, 20 minutes. And then my second break, I think I did 10 minutes, and I finished up with about a half hour remaining. So that's about spot on. Yep. So about 1 minute per question on average.
And we're talking PgMP exam. We're not talking CAPM or ACP exam.
That's correct. Yes.
It's a PgMP.
Yep.
PgMP. So many people think this is the hardest exam. If you look at lots of reviews and comments, they say, "Oh no, I'm glad I passed the exam. The exam was the hardest, and I've never seen such a exam. But you made it look so easy. What was the trick behind that? Good study."
Yeah, I'm trying to think back. You gave me some advice about not memorizing. It's better to understand than to memorize, right? And that stuck with me for the PgMP, and I found that easy with the PgMP. I had, let's say, an opportunity to take the PMP test, and now 5 or 6 years ago, twice, right? I failed it the first time.
Oh, all right. Okay.
I feel that since they moved out of the whole input, the ITTO part of it for the PgMP, if the prior books were aligned with that, I found the new structure much easier to consume, much easier to understand. I'm actually, as you know, working with you now on the PfMP. I'm actually finding that harder to understand than the PgMP because it goes back to that ITTO process, right? And now my mindset is I have to memorize the ITTO process, where when they removed the ITTO for the program management certification, it pushed me more towards understanding the domains opposed to memorizing the ITTOs. So, I think your coaching technique was spot on. Just understand the concepts, understand the deliverables, understand what people are doing for those deliverables and their roles and responsibilities in that process group, or I should say that domain.
Yeah, so that's right. So ITTO was there in actually second edition. When PMI released the standard for programming in second edition, that was around 400-page document, and in that document, it was full of ITTO, processes, input, and very much copy of PMBOK. And in the third edition, they in the third edition they removed all of it, and they refer look at PMBOK. So they literally removed that. And the fourth edition is much more defined. So that's good. You might be finding it difficult for the process, but actually it's much easier once you get to know the input and output and tools technique. Are only limited to people coming with PMP experience. And that's 49 process. Here we're talking 16 process. There are so many input and output here, even 1/8 of the input output tools technique. And there are only 5 or 6 documents we're talking here. So enough. Of course, in my coaching or training, I will make it look more simpler, make more easier. So not only you're motivated to learn, and you feel that is achievable. So that's good. Thank you. So, guys, you have an opportunity to ask questions from Jason and from me. So, on a question pad, you can always ask the question, and I will ask, bring the question as and when the logical point it is. And somewhere in between, I will also share the PDU detail. So we're not sharing those PDU via email anymore. So people who are joining now, they have opportunity to take a note of the PDU code, and people watching the video, they also have opportunity to claim the PDU. And by the way, the PDU will be this code will be available for 1 year. So if you're watching beyond that in 2021 or 2022, you will not be able to claim the same PDU. Anyway, so just ground rules. Jason, I do have some questions for you, and
Okay.
not specific to PgMP PfMP. We have talked about that enough. So, these questions coming from your experience as a program manager, program director, and whatever role you have done. We don't go talk about your US Army experience, but you're more than welcome to bring that experience, exposure, whenever you feel like, if that question relevant to you, and if it is not confidential as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, Jason, my first question is, many projects indicating failure at the early stage. And are still continued because many, while we know the project to fail, but many times we continue with that. How can a program manager identify and eliminate such context which result in massive loss of time, cost, and effort? What can we do to avoid that?
Yeah, I would say the simple answer, communication and inclusion, right? So, including the project managers that you're working with, they're going to have influence on the decisions and the risk analysis. Ensure that the people that are doing the work and the ones that have the insight on the overall, or ensure that they have insight on the overall objectives and can escalate risks either one-on-one to the leaders, the program managers, the project managers, or in an open forum as well, so that they can talk about those risks and get risk mitigation plans in place and get it resolved. Project managers can and frankly should conduct thorough risk analyses and provide appropriate levels of escalation to risk to ensure that they're managed within the projects and programs.
Mm-hmm. So how do you know this program is failing or going to fail? What tells you?
If you don't have that communication, if you don't see the individual component projects conducting their risk analysis, like if we come to a review board and I have a team or a project manager that doesn't have a risk in his or her entire program or project, now I need to look at, is this being governed correctly? Is this a successful project, right? I mean, nothing stays green all the time, right? The original plan that we come up with will never be the perfect plan from start to finish.
Yeah.
So if I don't see metrics within a project or program turn from green to yellow to green to yellow to red to yellow, and fluctuate a little bit, I think it takes an idea to take a look at it and make sure that things are moving in the right direction.
So, with your do you have any example where you can show that there was a problem going on and you were able to identify it early and you stopped it from becoming a big problem to the company?
Without keeping it project or program specific, because I do deal with the U.S. government projects. I have seen where every time we come together as a project or program management team, the program manager and the component project managers, I have seen it where a project manager would consistently come to the table with no new risks or no additional risks, or the former risks that were on the plate did not have an updated status of where they are in mitigating the risk. So I've seen it, and it just takes a little bit of coaching to, dive in there and support the project and program managers to ensure that, they're identifying the risks, communicating the risks before it actually becomes an issue. So, it's all right to fail, but if you're going to fail, do it fast, right?
Do it fast, yeah.
Yeah.
You don't want to spend money and then you realize that we should have actually closed it long time ago.
Right.
Rather than continuing, I don't know, sometimes because we love that program so much, whatever it is. But if it is the right time, you know that it's not going to make money or the objective, then close it.
Yep.
Perfect. Let's see some questions here. Right. Somebody, Ramesh is congratulations again, Jason, for your outstanding results.
Thank you.
Okay, so is there general standard in PgMP, memorizing versus understanding the concept?
So my first, I would say, month and a half of my 2 months of studies was all focused on understanding the concepts. After I felt that I had a thorough understanding of the concepts, that's when I moved into the memorization part of it. And the only things that I attempted to memorize is what was in the deliverables, the context of the documents, of the deliverables, the roles and responsibilities, and I want to say the EEFs and OPAs, right? If OPAs is right. Yeah, organizational process assets and the enterprise environmental factors. I memorized those. I want to say that's about it. Yeah.
So, generally I ask people first establish your understanding, the logical connection. You should know each and everything within the document or and the process or activity or task. And when you have understood it, there's no problem having a small jingle for yourself or something which can remind you the sequence or something. And I remember when we were, when young, we were told how to remember the color of rainbow. So it was not easy for me to remember, many people. So they told us some little word with your or something which help us to remember. So something like this, only when you have understood it, not before and okay, I have to memorize all 72 tasks. I have to, don't go there, but because that will not help you, rather may confuse you more. It is better to understand, look at the connection where the output of one is going into input of others. And that kind of relationship, if you understood, it will be much easier for you in the exam. Yeah. All right. How did you motivate yourself to stick to your preparation plan to appear for the exam?
So I was on a leave of absence for work, which is, a great opportunity that Microsoft provides. You get to take 12 weeks off upon the birth of a new baby. So, I dedicated from the start of that through the completion of that I would dedicate my evenings around 8 to 10 p.m. after the kids are to bed to studying for the PgMP certification. And I held true to that. I stuck to it. I studied for approximately 1 to 2 hours every night for about 2 months. And at that point in time, I was ready for the exam. It did take discipline to do that. I'm back to work now, and I'll tell you that I'm moving into the PfMP certification studies, and I'm finding it a lot harder to commit that 1 to 2 hours every night. But I took a 2-week break before I did that, so I need to get back into the mindset and put that pressure on myself to ensure I'm dedicated to success there.
Yeah, and then it's a matter of time you will bring your motivation back to PfMP and then you come back to work. So that's essentially. But so you utilize the parental leave for while you looking after a newborn and as well as getting ready for another newborn. Not them. PgMP.
Yeah.
Don't take it otherwise. All right. I will come to the other question. Let me talk about the question I have here. How can program manager convince the stakeholders in the identification of the needs and opportunities on the front end and realization of benefits at the other end? So front end and the back end when dealing with multiple projects.
Yeah. You'll see a common theme from my other answer too is, having that clear and concise conversation with stakeholders, right? I think a lot of what we do as program managers is communication. So, having that clear and concise conversation with stakeholders, while you're collecting requirements and defining the success criteria, right? And at the same point in time, again, going right back to one of the other themes that I talked about is inclusion, right? Include the project managers that are running the components in those communications so that they have an understanding of what the requirements are and the success criteria behind it. And ensuring that once that success criteria is set, is that those component project managers take their portions of the delivery and completely own it and see it through the end to ensure that the customer or the stakeholders, after they've identified what their desires are, that we're delivering against those desires, in alignment with the metrics and criteria that we've put in place to evaluate success.
So do you use any mapping or something to see the requirement and opportunity versus the benefit?
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know if we've necessarily done this correct on my last programs. I would say we would list it out by means of deliverables, which now that I've taken the PgMP and have a better understanding of all the concepts, I would reframe that to, a benefits registry. So, list out all the benefits that you're looking at delivering for your stakeholders, for your customers, identify what the success criteria is or what the success criteria are, and then continue to monitor that through the completion of the component deliveries and program delivery.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, now you have knowledge about the stakeholder engagement, stakeholder register, and the benefit register. All this can be useful when you're running the programs.
Right. Yep.
All right, going back to, we're getting lots of questions. So does PgMP cases consist programs where outcomes are only quantitative or both qualitative and quantitative? The PgMP cases consist programs where outcomes are only quantitative, only quantitative or both quantitative and qualitative.
So what's the question? Are the
I think there's more to do with the benefits, maybe. I'm thinking here, where you have quantitative benefits or tangible, intangible benefits kind of thing.
Yep. I mean, you're going to have both. In most cases, you're going to have both tangible and intangible benefits that you can quantify and or qualify.
Yeah. So any example of your quantity or let's say intangible benefits where you have to do it and you have to put some numbers around that?
Unfortunately, no, because I would say, with most of my contracts and work being with the government, we don't always see, what do I want to say, the impact of what was delivered, right? So the government's not going to report to us that because we built this system, there's no longer a contractor on the ground doing this work and you saved me, $200,000 a year per contract or per contractor, right? So unfortunately, we're not privy to that information, right? But I would say behind the scenes somewhere, the U.S. government is doing that analysis and identifying, if their projects and programs that they're contracting out to us are successful.
Perfect. All right, so you're getting lots of questions. That's a good thing. So regarding your work of program management, how did you manage the project interdependencies with respect to the resources and outcomes, risk and dependencies, etc.? Did you use any tools?
Yeah, so on this this last project that I was on, we used Microsoft Project for each component project manager to input all the activities that were occurring on their delivery. And then Microsoft Project Online has this roadmap feature where you can actually dive into the project plan and pull those umbrella tasks into the roadmap and monitor and control them at the program level. So what I would do is, within our governance, we would have weekly risk and issue meetings. We would have status issues so that we can ensure that we're monitoring and controlling the success of the individual components.
All right, so question for you. Why project failed with even excellent governance? Can you share some common causes of governance failure with examples? Why we are failing, even if we have the best sponsor and the best.
I would say, I see projects with excellent governance failing when the culture of that team might not be in the best of conditions, right? Our teammates, the consultants delivering the technology or the project managers tracking it and monitoring it and driving it to completion, they need to have the trust and confidence that if they escalate a risk and issue, that it'll be received well and with support, right? They're going to come to the table with a risk mitigation plan, but what they're looking for, I feel, from a program manager is support in that risk mitigation plan or some feedback to improve the risk mitigation plan. If there's a negative culture in the organization, those risks and issues won't be escalated and they won't be brought to the table. And I kind of align that with, not following the designed or agreed upon governance model, right? I mentioned in my last project that every week we would have risk and issue meetings with component project managers. And prior to that, the component project managers would have meetings with their team to ensure that all risks were identified. They'd have meetings with the appropriately aligned stakeholders to ensure that risks and issues were identified and then brought to the table during those conversations, that weekly conversation. But if the culture of your organization is not open and supportive, you're going to start seeing risks and issues not being brought to the table. Even though you might have the governance structure set up, you might not have the information flowing properly within that governance structure. And I'll happy to say that, with the two major programs that I've been on at Microsoft, I've been fortunate to not see this. I think we have a very supportive work culture within the company, and it drives that open conversation so that if someone sees a risk or an issue, they escalate that early so that the team can work and find a risk mitigation plan to solve it.
Yeah, they should be encouraged to discuss or escalate the right risk and issue. Not every risk.
Absolutely.
Issue. Some of them they should be handling at their level, but things which they're out of their control, they should not sit and wait something will happen by itself. They escalate it to the right people. And if you don't understand at the program level, you take it to the next level until we have the resolution.
Yeah, and one of the things that is in the standard for program management is in that program charter, I believe, it identifies what the program manager is authorized to manage in regards to risk, right? Yeah. So, I do the same thing with the project managers that I'm working with is if you have a high level risk or a critical risk, while I want you as the project manager to lead that to success and mitigate the risk, I also want you to escalate that to me so that I can give you feedback and help if help is needed, or I can take that risk and own it because maybe it's a program risk, or maybe it's so impactful on the success of our delivery or the success of our business that I escalate that to, the program steering committee or the portfolio manager for additional support and resolution.
Exactly. All right. I will ask another question from audience. Were there any question that you believe the answer choices were not correct? Okay. I thought schedule variance, cost variance question did not have a correct answer.
So that's hard to tell because you don't get the individual question responses back. So if I stepped that question out of the actual exam and put it back into the one-on-one mentorship that Dharam and I had, I would say absolutely yes, right? I mean, Dharam and I would be going over the 10 questions for a domain, and I would eliminate 3 of the answers, and I would say, obviously the answer is A because B, C, and D just do not work whatsoever. Then Dharam would enlighten me and say, well, actually the answer is B, and here's why, right? So, the bottom line is in 2 months or 6 months, or you're not going to consume 150 pages word for word with the analysis as well, because the questions are not word for word out of the material, right? So an analysis has to be done. Consider where you're at in the process, what document you're talking about, and answer the best answer, right? It's not a book answer, it's the best answer. So I mean, the same thing holds true with the PMP. I've held my PMP for 5-6 years now, and there's stuff that I don't know, right? I go back to the book and reread a chapter if I am not sure what the next step is, and every day that I do that, I learn something new. So yeah, but unfortunately on the exam, you don't get feedback if you got the answer, the specific answer correct. You just get feedback on your knowledge within that domain.
Yeah, another thing is these questions go through very rigorous process within PMI. In my case, I'm writing and I'm reviewing, and at the most somebody like Jason will review. This question looks not correct. But in PMI case, there are lots of volunteers. They get together to build a question, review happen, analysis happen. So getting a wrong answer in exam is very, very unlikely. I don't think so. There's any. But I think if I'm correct, you're probably asking question around schedule variance, cost variance, which is a very popular question, and it's most likely going to come in your exam as well. That is a question number 73 in my exam. Jason, if I told you about that one, you probably got that as well, where the PV is given 340, 320K, and AC was 350, and earned value is so and so. So this question, many people think is wrong because it's not direct answer. But here, this is where the trick comes. You need to not only look at the question, the numbers given, but you need to see the context, whole context, because the question is talking about this program is a 9-month program and $1.2 million allocated, and you are on the 3rd month. You're reporting about the project, about the program. So obviously, people don't see that answer that straightforward. But when you start looking outside of the box, you say, hang on, we're not only looking at the numbers, but we are the 3rd month out of 9 months. We are 1/3. What about if you multiply this by 3? If everything goes same, the answer will be like this. So that's where we talk in the class, how to see a question which you may feel wrong at the time, but actually not wrong, but there's a different way of looking at that question. All right, good. So thanks for the question. And then I have another question. What is the current demand and value of PgMP in US market in general, and in software and Microsoft specific? So I will actually take the question about the US market, and I will let you, Jason, talk about the Microsoft specific. So let me start with this. I'm actually following this for some time, especially in US. When I came last year in the United States, in October, I did first time, went to LinkedIn, did a quick search with PgMP. At the time, it was 641 jobs with PgMP mentioned. I was excited. I immediately put a post on LinkedIn, and then I was start tracking it. 2 months ago, I was looking. The number grown up to 700, 10, 15, something like this. So 3 weeks ago, the number gone up by up to 758. So you can see the number going upward. And 2 weeks ago, when I saw the number was rather yesterday I was looking actually 802 jobs which has PgMP mentioned, and out of 802, 459 jobs were created only in last 30 days. 129 jobs were created in last 7 days. 24 jobs were created in last 24 hours. So this is a very good trend. And if you know, in US, there are less than around 1,200 active PgMPs. And people like me, I'm not applying for jobs. So there are many people, they're not applying for job all the time. So like, in case of Jason, he's not going to apply. He's very satisfied. So there are around, let's say, 100 to 200 people looking for job with the PgMP. So you have really good chance to get into better job because 802 jobs, and you are one of them as a PgMP, then you apply and you have good choice. So I see this a good trend, and especially in US. I cannot say the same thing with other part of the world, but US from 600 to 800 in the last 1 year, and this is going upward. Even though we are in COVID situation, when you can say that the job should be going down, but the job with PgMP is growing. Even in PfMP, it was 25 last year, now 35. I know it's slow, but it is also growing. So having the certificate at this point of time will definitely add more value in your search. If you are looking for a job, then it's the right time for you to get yourself into a certification program and get it done in next 2 months. And by the time, hopefully before end of December or before Christmas, you end up into job, or maybe get your first job in January as early as possible. So that's my analysis or my research for last 1 year. And I'm very happy to see this number actually growing. And Microsoft, you can talk about this, how the trend in Microsoft, your organization asking for PgMP or PfMP, or yes.
Yeah, I haven't, granted, I've only been certified here for about a month and a few days. So I haven't seen a lot of demand, but I've had the conversations with our delivery excellence area and other areas of the business where I've wanted to contribute to building out improvements in our processes and procedures. And I utilize that PgMP certification as a tool to get into that community to make an impact on that area of the business, right? There's a lot of people in our business that want to help support the creation of documentation on policies, procedures, the processes of delivering. But if you actually come with the book knowledge and you've applied it in the past, you're much more likely to get a seat at that table, I would say. Yeah. So in marketing myself, I would say that the PgMP certification has been very helpful in marketing myself.
Yeah, that's actually add immediate value to your resume or your LinkedIn profile, and in your organization. People do recognize, even the company like Microsoft, probably there are how many, 4 or 5 or maybe 6 people with PgMP, not too many. So immediately you are one of the few in the whole organization. And then you talk about PgMP and PfMP together. Probably there's no one. I don't know. You know better. You may be the first person to get PgMP and PfMP. So people will see you as SME because you not only have experience and exposure and 15, 20 years, but also you have learned the standard, PMI standard, and you can apply that knowledge in your by improving the process, tools, or the documents.
Yep.
And bringing the benefit management and stakeholder engagement, more rigor around that.
Yep.
Yeah. Good. Thank you. All right, before we go to the next one, other question from audience, let me see. My question here, I have a big list for you. Okay, so strategy, we talk about good strategy and good strategy execution. All right, that is good management. Why are crafting and executing strategy important for program managers?
Yes, I would say this, it gives the team that common understanding at a high level, right? What is that desired end state? It also enables everyone on the team to contribute to support the idea behind the implementation of a product, right? If the strategy is to drive consumption of a product or service, and a team member has an idea to make the product or service better, knowing the strategy will help influence that team member in communicating the idea that he or she has.
Okay. So were you involved in crafting strategy for your program or?
No, I would say more because I took over a deliveries that were already pre-existing. If anything, we adjusted a pre-established strategy, but my focus was on governance improvement. But of course, that governance was a complement of the strategy that was either provided to me or I helped support adjust in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, but having a proper execution of the strategy is really important, and that's where the results are coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, so let's look at other question. Did you see any process and practice gaps between your work experience with the PgMP study guide? So I think the question you're talking earlier about how you're implementing, this may be kind of related to that. So did you see any gap between what you have and what PMI is suggesting in standard for program management?
Absolutely, unfortunately, right? So, before I went on my 12 weeks of infant care leave, I was leading a program at Microsoft that was, I think, $109 million. So I was the lead, and they hired another person to replace me, and he shadowed me for a good month or two, which was great for our transition. But there were definitely some things that I was not doing that is the textbook answer, right? One of the biggest ones is we managed our program through deliverables, right? And you don't manage a program through deliverables, you manage a program through benefits, right? The component project managers or the components are more or less delivering the deliverables, right? The product or the service, and the program is delivering the benefits, right? So I wish that looking back 3 or 4 months ago, that when I was delivering on that program, I was delivering towards benefits and not delivering towards deliverables, right? I think that would have made me more successful. I think it would have made the program more successful. I think it would have been a great coaching and teaching point to the project managers that I was working with, right? So then I took my 12 weeks off. I got the certification, did the studying, and now the guy that took over for me, he's still in that lead role because we don't want to continue to move people around and adjust who the customer stakeholder or the key point of contact is. So he and I will bounce ideas off of each other quite frequently. And he's probably getting tired of it, but most often my response now is, well, the book answers this. What do we want to do, right? And you don't always have to do the book answer. It's a guide. You take the book and you implement it the best way that it complements your business or your strategy for success. But I've seen a lot of impact in taking that book answer back to the organization and being able to say, well, if you want to not reinvent the wheel, we should do it this way. But if we want to spend time, effort, and money on reinventing the wheel, we can continue to do it the other way, right? And the other way isn't always a wrong way. But in my opinion, it's easier to go the book answer than to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, perfect. All right, guys, let me give you the PGU code. And we're not done yet. I have a lot of questions to go. So that people here, please take a note of that. And if you don't, then you have to watch the video again. So the course identifier, let me spell it for you, PMEXP hyphen JG, Jason, this is for Jason, hyphen 01. So this is course identifier, PMEXP dash JG dash 01. And the PDU code is 399822Z or Z, whatever you want to call, R5Y. Let me repeat, 399822, it might be 2L actually, 2L, sorry, my apologies, let me repeat, 399822LZR5Y, letter Y. Okay, if you still not get it, let me know. I will repeat it or I can message you later. So if you have note down, that's good. I will try to put it in the chat box as well later on so that you don't miss it. All right, let's continue with our questions. So let me see. There are many questions coming. Hello, Jason. Congratulations for your PgMP. And dear Dharam, this is Pavan from Uganda. Okay, I'm also PgMP certified. I cleared my PgMP August last year. Okay, great. Thank you. Good to know this. And I have a question related to PfMP. Is there any time lag between PgMP and PfMP, or I can immediately undertake PfMP? You said you passed exam last year. You already waited 1 year. So, like Jason, I think Jason is perfect example. You finish your PgMP immediately, Dharam, I'm starting PfMP. And I think this is a good idea because lots of things you already learned from PgMP. You have already built your knowledge around strategy and the governance and the benefits, risk, communication. You still have these concepts at the program portfolio level. So it's become much easier for you to transition your learning from PgMP to PfMP. I'll let Jason talk about his experience and why he decided that way.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, right? You look at, I studied all these things for the PgMP, right? You have a program charter, right? All that content that's in a program charter in the PgMP, it's very similar when you go to the PfMP to move that mindset to the portfolio charter, the portfolio management plan, right? Moving right from the PgMP to the PfMP, you're not rememorizing what is in each of those key documents. You're just kind of tailoring it to what's different, if there's anything that's different. But yeah, ultimately, I think, with my study habits of being dedicated to 1 to 2 hours a night for the PgMP, if I stop doing that, I'll have to retrain myself to study every single night again, right? So for me, I saw the best opportunity for success was to just transition right into the next phase.
Yeah, just a second. I'm putting that PDU codes on chat as well, so that everybody have that.
And there's no minimum time in between. You just fill out the application and you do the math on if you have operated at that level in the past, and if you have, then you go through the panel review and get acceptance, and if not, maybe then you go back and identify opportunities where you focus on a portfolio and then reapply for the exam.
Yeah, and actually I've seen some people while they're preparing for PgMP, they also fill up the application for PfMP. So they finish the PgMP exam and do, in a month's time, they also completed the PfMP. So it becomes much easier for you to smoothly get into that and complete both certificate and in a period of 2 to 3 months, start to end, from PgMP, PfMP, and then PfMP. That's an ideal, scenario. All right, so guys, I have put that PDU code again on the chat, so hopefully you got it. And if you have not received, please message me, email me, I will reply back to that. All right, so we still have some time and we have lots of questions. So I hope, listen, you don't mind to stay a little bit more longer. Yeah. Okay, so if you are in an organization where the one who shouts the loudest get attention and resources, how would you start a balanced program on a business value? So if you are in the organization where if you shout, people give you the resources. If you don't, you be like very quiet person, you don't get that.
So is the question around how do you get those resources, or
how do you balance your program on business value? So you may not get the required resources on time.
So I would say this probably leans more towards what I'm learning in the PfMP, where you have to, and I don't have all the correct terms down because I just started my studies, but you have to analyze what your prioritization is, right? So, I don't know if it's necessary for a program, but at a portfolio, prioritize what all your projects and portfolios are, and start filling those based on that prioritization matrix. You could do the same in a program, but if the program is chartered, you have a program sponsor that it's their role to enable success, right? And with that comes the people to do the work. So if you're not being enabled to be successful on the program that was chartered because you don't have the staffing, I would probably escalate that as a risk or more or less an issue to the program steering committee and the program sponsor who is included in that program steering committee, so that they take that risk and they own it and they identify how they're going to enable you to be successful.
Exactly. So yeah, it's a very important point. As a program manager, if you cannot get the resources, you need to highlight, why my program going to fail. If I don't have the resources, I don't have the money, I don't have the right equipment, I will not be able to do the job. So escalate this as a risk and issues, and try to get attention from them. Okay, again, if the program is not highest priority, then they will probably not going to bother anyway. But if the program is on priority and you need right resources, you have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Jason, you're okay to spend some more time with us, or you have to go?
Yeah, I probably have another 10 minutes.
Okay, so that's good. I'll take one more question from my list, and then I will go through other questions. Some of the questions I will have to answer later on if you have to go. So what factors are driving software industry PMO changes, and what impact will they have?
Yeah, I would say right now, COVID-19 is driving a lot of changes that we're seeing across the industry. I'd say it's now more important than ever to have clear metrics identified for evaluating projects and programs, as well as a program management information system that's validated to support the monitoring and controlling of the projects and programs. Right. I think we're going to continue to see more web-based program management information systems, based on the pure fact that many of us are working from home. Many of us are spending less time with our project and program teams face-to-face, less time with our program steering committee and the stakeholders that will want to understand where we're at in the delivery. So if we've identified those metrics, if we've put them into a program management information system that is cloud-based and anybody can reach in and look it up, opposed to emailing a project or program manager asking for a report, I think that communication will improve and people can be asking the right questions at the right point in time with the right information.
Fantastic. All right, Jason, I probably have another 20 to 30 questions, which is a great thing. Right. People are participating. So we're not going to the question I have. So let me take you through, and some of the questions which I will answer later. If you have to go, you will go. I will keep answering the question if they are specific to PgMP PfMP. So one of the questions coming is, what is the biggest political challenge you faced while running a program? Okay, and how did you manage to overcome? And let me complete it. I think there are a few questions. Or did you just have to shut down the program, or do you get similar situational question in the exam? Okay.
Yeah, so I have not gotten similar questions on the exam. I've never had to shut down a program. I think the biggest thing that I've dealt with is internal politics of the organization, right? And that's not necessarily at Microsoft. That's pretty much everywhere I've worked, whether it's the Army or the other technology company ISW that I mentioned earlier. Every part of an organization is, we're all moving in the same direction, but we all have different needs. We all have different metrics to measure success. We all have different but similar goals and how we want to achieve those. So what I do see most frequently, and again, this is not necessarily at Microsoft, this is across all organizations that I've worked within and for, is the internal politics getting to that final measure of success.
Fantastic. I was just going through the list of the questions, especially the question which can be answered by you. All right. What study material you used other than SPM and Dharam's notes?
Okay. Yeah, so I'll go through the whole study process. I would spend pretty much 7 days per chapter. My first day, I would watch Durham's video. Then the second day, I would look at those same slides that were in the video that were in his book. That was my preferred way to study, is to rapidly go through each of the slides. His slides are very close to the standards of program management, but the way that they're broken down into bullet form, and I think he chops out a lot of the what I want to say, the filler information, right? So instead of having to read a whole sentence or two, he's got the statement of what is the bullet point that we're talking about here. So that is where I saw a lot of impact. That was day 2. Day 3, I would move to note cards and write down all of the key things, especially people and what their roles and responsibilities were, any deliverables or documents created and what the content of those documents had. And then the subsequent days, I would do a mixture of studying those note cards and the slides from his chapters. So I don't have the thing, but the complete reference guide to PgMP certification 5th edition. This was my #1 go-to for studying. So again, very similar to the standards of program management, but just his reframing of it was a lot easier to understand than reading a paragraph out of a book.
Yeah, that's good. And thanks for creative comments. So I think these questions are coming from my students. They already attended my program, so they always look for something more. So other than these books, I think Dr. Ginger's book you already have, guys, are really helpful. If you're not, you can ask me for that. I mean, there are lots of questions, Jason, but they're more about the PDUs. I'm not, there are 3 or 4 main questions. So if you can do that, I like to close together. All right. So how did you plan your last week of preparation before the exam?
Yeah, so in Durham's slides, he has somewhere in there, I don't recall where, but he has a recommendation of what to do on the last day before you go to the exam, and maybe even the week leading to it, I don't recall. But basically the week before I went to take the exam, I took one of Ginger's exams, and then I took the results, had a conversation with Durham, we identified where I should focus my studies for the next week. So I focused my studies in those areas. And then the day before the test, I did not study at all. I did see that as a good way to do it. It helped me clear my head and focus on other things and forget about the stressors of a big exam coming tomorrow.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. And guys, whoever my student, I think Ramesh, you asked this question, you are my student anyway. So you have opportunity to book a 1 hour with me, 7 days or 10 days of your exam. So as Jason mentioned, I will, the purpose of that meeting is to assess your readiness. Are you ready? I will check your score within your mock exams. If I feel or you feel you're comfortable, then we talk about what you're going to do in the next 7 days, the last 24 hours, the last night, morning of the exam, how and when you should reach the center, what you're going to take with yourself. Sometimes very minor thing. People, sometimes water generally provided by the center, but it may happen that your center is not providing water, and you forgotten to take a water bottle with you. So think about situation. It's a very minor thing, but I will point out during the conversation that make sure you take water bottle, make sure that make sure you take a chocolate bar or something which can be quick bite during the middle of the exam where you're feeling really hungry or something. So very minor things I will talk about in that session, and when to take break, how to take a break, how to keep pushing. So that's 1 hour session will be very useful, which I think you utilize it very effectively. It's more about clearing the mind and doing what you do in the morning of the exam. If you do exercise, yoga, swimming, you should do that because you want to have more and more oxygen, fresh oxygen, and go to the center with a fresh mind. 15-minute time. That 15-minute time not only for you to set your environment, but also to bring your energy back. Meditation, quick meditation can help.
Yep.
So anyway, so that's yeah.
And to add to that, just me personally, I probably won't schedule the exam for the PFMP on a Monday, but I will probably take the day before the exam off work, so that I can, do like Dharam said, relax, exercise, get your mindset right, don't study, but just, get rid of any stressors in life, relax, and then focus on the exam the next day.
Yeah. Jason, I will take 2 or 3 more questions. They're easy for you to talk about. First thing, okay. PfMP and PgMP, which one you recommend I should get first?
So, I mean, the natural progression is, PMP, PgMP, PfMP. However, you don't need any of those to get the other one, right? So if you're a senior executive in your company, one, I would recommend that you get the PfMP. Number two, as your subordinate, I need you to have that knowledge, right? I'm looking for you to give me guidance, direction, mentorship. So I would prefer that you have that knowledge and background so that when you're coaching me on how to be successful, you're doing so from that level of the business, right? Does a senior executive need a PMP? Probably not, right? They probably have an entire organization that deals with delivery excellence and quality assurance. They don't need to be nitpicking a project plan because they should have a team that does that. But what they do need to know is strategy and how they can help us support the delivery of that strategy in our programs. So again, I think it all aligns with where you are in the business and where you want to be, right? Where I'm at in the business is at the program level, and where I want to be in the business is at the portfolio level. So with my little bit of portfolio experience, I think I have enough to take the exam and gain the insights and knowledge. And now what I want to do is craft my next step in my career so that I can walk in and be competitive for that role.
Yeah. So there's no hierarchy, as Jason mentioned, but you need to see which one is relevant to you, which one will give you the most value. Whether doing PgMP first will help you more, or PfMP, or vice versa, where you want to go to next phase. So there are many conditions you have to think about, many things you have to think about. So I think I will recommend you to have a book appointment with me. We can go through a specific situation, and I will tell you which one will you should go for. There are a couple of other questions with similar theme. So I think that's where, if you are in that mindset, you are confused what to do, what not to do, how to study. So please book appointment with me. It's free, no compulsion of joining my program. And you like to know about my program, anything you want to hear, and more about talking about the job market, I can definitely help you. There's two more questions, rather small three questions. One question is, yes, jobs are increasing, but what about the salaries? So that actually goes with supply and demand. If you have more jobs and less people with PgMP, and they want to attract PgMP, the salary will go automatically up. If you have more PgMP than the jobs, of course, they will bring it down. It's a simple supply demand. So I think the salaries are also going up. And again, depends upon which part of the world you are in and which part of US you are in. The salary are different in different parts. Any comments on this? Yes, sir?
They're just gaining the certification. Again, even though you might not get a new job within an organization, most organizations have levels within specific jobs, right? So you might be a project manager or an associate project manager. You might be a senior project manager, or you might be trying to make principal, or so on. I think gaining the knowledge, gaining the skill set, and being able to communicate with executives in your company at a project or program or portfolio level could increase your potential for promotion. So while it might not come with a promotion, right, you might not step out of the exam, go email your boss, and all of a sudden get a nice raise. What it does is it lets you leverage that knowledge, show that you're making an impact on the business, and it puts you in that window where your management starts coming to you saying, I want to put you in a promotion because you're delivering at a higher level, right? Instead of you going and asking for it.
Exactly. I've seen that when I was working. I've seen this happening. All right. Let me take last two questions. I promise the last two. How PgMP and PMI ACP are different or similar? Which one is better to do?
Go ahead, Dharam.
Go ahead. You have you done ACP?
Yeah. So I haven't done the PMI ACP. I have reviewed it a little bit. I have delivered a large-scale agile program using the SAFe methodology. I would say they're completely two different mindsets, right? So the feedback I got from PMP to PMI ACP is completely forget about the PMP when you go to learn about the PMI ACP. And Dharam, you could probably talk more about that. But they're completely different frameworks. They're different mindsets. So I would say they're pretty much unrelated. And I think as someone on LinkedIn commented the other day, they actually at PMI took the PMI ACP and are adding 4 additional agile certifications to that. So when you look at that, I think we're starting to see a scaled approach on the agile side of the house as well.
Yeah. So my take on this is like ACP is going to help you how to do your projects in agile, faster, in a different way, different approach. This is, you can say, very comparable to PMP, not with the PgMP. So PgMP level, it doesn't matter whether you're running projects in the under agile methodology, waterfall, or hybrid. What you're doing at the PgMP level, you are managing group of projects, whether this infrastructure, whether it's application, whether agile way or waterfall way, really doesn't matter. What matters is how do you put these projects or sub programs in such a way you get the best result, and you're going to pick the best methodology which will help you to get the result. So ACP, you can say the hygiene, because if you're working in the agile environment, that's kind of required. But PgMP or PfMP are strategic. This will take you to the next level of the organization, not just project program. It will take you to the PMO or PMO head, or maybe general manager and senior position. Yeah. All right. So last question: is PMI requirement for PFMP certified the PgMP one, or vice versa, to do the post certificate within 3 months? I know they say no. Within PMP and PgMP, there's a, you can do that, because if you're already PMP, if you're already PMP, then you don't have to write your project experience. This is actually a new requirement, not new change from 15th of July. Any application you're doing now, if you're already PMP, you don't have to worry about writing the project experience. And actually, in a way, if you've done already PMP recently, after having 3 or 4 years, you can do the PgMP as well within the 4 years experience. I didn't know that, but some people have got approval for that as well. You are just 4 years altogether in program and project management, and you completed your project experience, PMP. Now you're doing PgMP application. So some of the work you use as a project experience, now you can use that as a program experience. And that means you can satisfy within 4 years of experience with both sides. And even better, let me add one more thing. Even better, if you're done your project management or some certification or some bachelor's or master from GAC, these are PMI accredited universities, and if you've done that from them, you need to show 3 years of program management experience only. So there you go. Even if you are a 3 years experience, you run PMP, and you can do PgMP as well. I don't know what value they're going to add, but it's a good move. But for PfMP and PgMP, there's no such relationship. You don't get any benefit doing PgMP or PfMP or PgMP in the eligibility side. Okay. Okay. I think there's one last thing. Saying since PMP covers Agile, does ACP still required to add value? PMP cover, yes. So ACP actually talks about generic way, generic Agile methods. So they don't talk specifically like in Scrum Master or something. They talk about various type of Agile methodology or Agile approach. Whether you need to do ACP separately or not, I think that's a separate question we can talk about. And unless you have any answer to this, Jason.
No, not myself particularly.
Yeah. Yeah, so Agile comes with the different flavors, whether it's Scaled Agile, Disciplined Agile, ACP, Scrum Master. So you need to see which one will add more value to you, and which organization. If some organization are specifically working particular methodology within Agile, you need to adapt according to that. Okay, I think that's it. I have taken 18 minutes more than what I planned, and I know you have a meeting after this. Sorry about this, Jason.
Oh, no worries. Thank you.
But thank you staying along with us and up to this time. And I'd like to thank everybody who stays along and putting their questions. So there's so many questions, clarifications. There are so many questions around PDU code. I think when I'm reading, I mix something. But the chat, before you finish, make sure you look at the chat. You should have that the code in your chat. And if you still don't get this, please message me. If you still have some question, which I think there's some question I probably missed. Please send me a message separately or book an appointment with me. You feel free to connect with Jason on LinkedIn and with me, and reach out to us. There are lots of help available, guys, so don't feel alone. If you have any doubts, any confusion, and whether I'm eligible for PgMP or not, whether I'm eligible for PfMP or not, whether I'm all kind of questions, you should book an appointment with me. I don't charge for that. Yes, rather you will find another friend within me. So even if you don't attend my program, we're still friends. So it's all win-win for everybody. So once again, thank you everyone, and special thanks to Jason first for attending my program and then coming out and helping or answering the questions which lots of people had. So it was really awesome to have you here. And
thank you.
And thanks everyone for coming again and again to these programs. So next program is coming up in 2 weeks time. I think with Raman, he's talking more about the PfMP experience. So more and more, I have already lined up for another 3 or 4, I think four speakers. So every 2 weeks we're going to have. So please come along and join these programs. watch these videos, and share with your friends. Thank you, guys. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay safe. See you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.